Testing. JB here. Hope he was doing outstanding. July 25th, 2019. Just going to be really quick. Talk about a little bit about the ECB and why futures spiked and have come down. Talk a little bit about Sherman Williams, ISRG, IIPR, Yeti, so on and so forth. So first, of course, I'll talk about Sherman Williams, and actually was a name I was bearish at the end of 2018. And I wouldn't say bearish, but you have to think at some point there's the slowdown. I was trying to think exactly what my bear case. I think I talked about on my top 5 stocks 2019. But needless to say, things have shifted. I think there were signs with some of these other companies, the same sector, were having some slowdowns. And I thought it was going to roll over and spill over in Sherman Williams. They had lower guidance. Actually, 2 quarters in a row, they had disappointing earnings and the stock rebounded. And that was kind of the sign that, hey, people are going to buy the dip. Things are going to recover. And sure enough, you see it here, all-time highs yesterday. And they've been buying back shares. The growth has been stable. So there's probably tons of upgrades. Another upgrade this morning. There's probably trades over 510. So I'll close some of my 510 calls to cover costs. Hopefully a little profit there and then ride the rest. At the same time, you never know. This could pull back into the 490s. And then, of course, the 510s, which expire tomorrow, will be bidless. So that's kind of the thought process there. I was watching it after the earnings, and the 490s I could have got, I think, at 35, 45 cents. I think they were 10 or 11 bucks yesterday at times, even more. But can't cry over the spilled milk that does nothing. But I was waiting for it to show some strength yesterday morning. Sure enough, once it broke over, I think it was 493 or so, I went and got the calls, goes up to 495, and then couldn't find any strength to get through, pulled all the way back, was actually red for a second, and then blasted off into the end of the day. So hopefully it holds 500 this morning, and it can continue to head higher into today and possibly into tomorrow. Intuitive Surgical closed over 540 for the first time since, I think, late April. After its earnings slide from its previous quarter, which was a horrible quarter, they came back with a phenomenal quarter, kind of put the concerns to rest, raised their procedural growth guidance. I think it's on the path to new all-time highs over 590. Hasn't been doing too well since the earnings. I was hoping for a faster move to the upside. Had some consolidation. So if it shakes it off here, I think the upper Bollinger Band's 545. So maybe it needs a day or two to consolidate and then move higher. But if there's strength today, if it's over 545, I'll probably look for some Lotto 550, 555 strikes to play for a possible 3-4% move to the upside, which I think will happen at some point. That's Intuitive Surgical. IIPR. Again, if you know the story here, I continue to talk about this one in regards to the hot sector, a name that takes advantage of a space that is dying for capital. It's run by people who have experience building a portfolio. I'm still in the early stages, and they continue. It seems like every other day there's new news of a deal they've worked out in a leaseback program and capital that they're providing for to upgrade the facilities. Blah blah blah. Whatever the case may be. Came all the way down to 98 bucks yesterday before starting to stage a bounce. I was waiting for the dust to settle, but once it broke through 104, I think it was 103, 104, I went and got the August strikes. If it breaks over 110, I'll probably look for some October 160, 170 strikes. It's, I said it 2 weeks ago, this is going to be a volatile name. It's going to continue to have wide swings. If you look back, I don't know if it was May, it went from 80 to 60, and then from 60 to 100, and then from 100 to 120, then back down to 110, then all the way up to 140. So these swings are probably not going to be something that go away. It's going to continue to have these wild swings. So even if it does get to 140 in the next couple of weeks, it could do a 125, then back down to 115, then up to 140. It's just the nature of the beast, especially as there's a large short interest. A lot of people are trying to value this company as a traditional REIT. They think it's overvalued based on looking at all the metrics that you would look at when you're looking at a traditional REIT, but this is not a name that's in the traditional space. So I think that's why it deserves some much higher premium, much higher valuation, blah, blah, blah. So that's IIPR. Yeti, unfortunately, I wouldn't say I got shaken out of it, but I was holding weekly positions. It goes all the way up to 36.80 or so. Looked like it was going to break out. 36.50 was a key breakout spot, at least for what I was looking at. Couldn't hold that. Then it started to fade back under 36. Then once it started getting into the 35.70 range, I looked and I closed them out for a loss. Sure enough, it was gapping up this morning, all the way over 30. I think 37.86 was the paint. I'll be looking for a possible entry for some 45 strikes. They report earnings August 1st. Tough name here. It was all the way down in the 20s. Again, another name that people look at, and it's very easy to make a bear case on it because they don't really have. There's there's not a large moat or a moat around their business when it's coolers and coffee mugs and uh, you packs, cooler packs, things like that. They have a lot of different products, but it's not like someone else can't just go and manufacture. So lots in the name, lots in how their products and patents they have. So which kind of opens an opportunity when you have people who are betting against the name. If there's a strong beat with earnings, certainly could propel the stock over $40. So not only that, you've had these historical moves on IPOs. I call them IPO smash ups. Companies that have IPO'd within a year that still haven't really got price discovery. There's a lot of price discovery going on with people who are not sure of the valuation based on its growth and its fundamentals. So I think there's an opportunity there in Yeti. And then the ECB. I mean, UPB has written articles over the years that calls him Draghi. If anybody watches Game of Thrones and the season that had the many face god, that's what he calls Draghi. And Draghi used to talk about his rocket launcher, whatever he called his. I forget what the analogy was, but pretty much he's going to do whatever it takes to make sure the Eurozone's economy is on track. So there was that point they were looking to normalize policy and start to scale back on their monetary easing programs and stimulus. At some point there was talk that they were going to start to raise rates. Maybe this is 12 months ago, could be sooner, and now it's kind of flipped. And they're already negative rates, right? NERP, crazy stuff. I mean, they're going to pay you money to hold their money. Anyway, so they already talked about this morning. They've opened a possibility to cut rates and more possibly get back into stimulus, more bond buying, whatever they're going to do. And they, of course, the narrative there, or at least the argument there is that there's low inflation and growth. I've said this for many years. I think low inflation is the new normal, but needless to say, so a future spike, then kind of come back down as I think he started talking to 845. So you also have there's tensions now with South Korea and Russia. Russia has a tanker being held, and then you also have what did Trump? I talked about a 2-year budget agreement, so you had the debt ceiling. So anyway, at the end of the day, I mean, we're over 300. Came up to the 300. Looked like we were going to sell off. Everybody put their bear hats on, and then back over 300 yesterday, all the way up to 302 this morning. So we'll have to see. That 300 area certainly, I know it's an even number and easy to look at, but it certainly looked like strong support now that we're above it, and probably strong resistance if we get back under it. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Tough week with earnings. Well, at least yesterday. So you take a look at a line, and the line's it's been a great story. I forget when I started looking at it. Maybe was it last year or the year before? Maybe it was the year before. I mean, stock was like 120, and they announced an accelerated stock buyback program, 50 million share buyback, or whatever the case may be. It was a name no one really talked about, and I looked at it. I said, this is going to pull a Sam move. And Boston Beer was $120. They announced that buyback, and the thing went up to 330, and now, of course, much higher than that. But I looked at the line. I said, wow, it's got great growth, great opportunity. It's undiscovered name, huge debt, a great cash position, no debt, huge fundamentals. And sure enough, stock just continued to go. I hadn't played it for quite some time. But then you look at the earnings a couple quarters ago when there were signs of competitive concerns and a slowdown. And now their recent earnings report, they talked about China slowdown. They talked about competitive concerns. So, it's one of those names, volatile. Someone asked yesterday, I'm like, I wouldn't play this thing for today, for earnings, because it's so volatile and the premium is so expensive. I mean, you take a look, it's at 217 right now, 218. And the puts, so the 220 puts, 65 by $1. So, I mean, things at 275, that's a lot of premium there to pay to hope for a huge move to the downside. So, I mean, those are going to open up green, but it's not one of those where it's going to be a 15-20 bagger unless, of course, the stock breaks under 210 or so. So take a look at Tesla. I mean, the CTO came on the call. He's stepping down, but he's not stepping away from the company. Stock still sold off. Talked about his concerns with margins. So tough one there with Tesla. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Then you also have PayPal, which was lower, but did it start to come back? That's 117. Then you also had ServiceNow. With ServiceNow, looks like it's going to pull a boomerang, and all the way, I think 273 hit in the after hours yesterday. Started to bounce back, and you see here 289 or so. No negative analysts on the name, so I don't know if that's That's a good thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes not a good thing. But it certainly looks like one of those names that could pull a move, a reversal move into the green, and then possibly over $300. So that could be a name. Maybe the 305 lotto calls. I might look to play some calls if there's some strength at the open. And I think that's it. What else we have? Yeah, look at 3M. A huge reversal from its previous earnings drop. And again, you look at the calls. If you're trying to play the weekly calls on MMM, you're still not going to make too much money despite the huge move this morning. So it's at 188. The 185 calls are 77 cents. So, well, I guess that's going to give you 6 bags. So I guess that is a big move. Maybe I was looking at the wrong thing this morning. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. Anyway, folks, that's it. Let's have a great day. I'll be back. Rock and roll.